We're going to have a presentation more exciting than API endpoints, more exciting than blockchain. Yes. Jeff has come from us from a very exotic location of Cleveland, Ohio, which from here actually is pretty exotic. Oh shit, hold on. Let's do this cable. Try this other. Okay, let's hope that stays. Jeff works for the division of Rakuten we call Rakuten Overdrive. So it's a company that focuses on education, libraries, reading, digital books, digital audiobooks. It has huge penetration in the U.S. Almost every library you go to uses Overdrive technology to purchase digital editions of media. And hold on. Yeah, let's switch. Okay, so without further ado, before the slide dies,
no one watched that.
I'm going to give it to Jeff. Hold on.
Oh, it's working. Don't touch it.
Hold on. Let me find my staff.
I have a shorter one.
Do you have one?
I have a shorter one.
So
it seems like it's not long enough, but that's a little closer.
The focus. Okay, all right. Jeff, take it away.
Thank you, everyone. One technical difficulty after another. Well, thank you all for attending. My slides are amazing, so I'm glad we got this working. So I am Jeff Sterling, the CTO for Rakuten Overdrive. And I'm excited to share with you and introduce you all to Libby, our newest reading app for Overdrive. And the way we describe it internally is it's an augmented hybrid app, and you will soon learn why we call it that. So, 1 second. Of course, there's updates. So a little bit about Rakuten Overdrive. We joined the Rakuten group in 2015, so 2 years ago. And as Frank mentioned, we're a leading distributor for public libraries and schools worldwide. We are located in Cleveland, Ohio. So we're not huge Warriors fans, but we are Cleveland Cavaliers fans. My son is watching at home, wanted me to say something about that. And our mission is a world enlightened by reading. So I wanted to start with a little bit of history, why we created Libby. So let's get started. Back in 2010, we created an Overdrive app for both iOS and Android. And today it's extremely popular. It's highly rated. We have 4.5 stars in each of the app stores. And on an average day, we have nearly 1 million active users using the app. And on monthlies, we have over 3.5 million monthly active users. Also in 2010, we had our eye on an Australian startup company named Bookish, and they had released a web publishing platform that had a really elegant web reader, and Overdrive did not have a reading technology within the web. And the bookish reader worked on any device with a modern web browser and had absolutely no software to install. So in 2012, Overdrive decided to acquire Bookish. We were in a build versus buy decision on a web reader, and we really liked what we saw from the Bookish group, and so we acquired them in 2012. And we re-architected their reader for more scale because our user base was much larger than theirs, and it became Overdrive Read. And Overdrive Read is a true ebook as a service platform where every book is a URL. 2 years after, we added audiobook support to our Overdrive Read platform, and it was named Overdrive Listen. We're not very creative with our names. And it had the same benefit as Read. There's absolutely no software to install. You use a web browser, you see an audiobook, you click play, and it streams in the web. So, at that time, we had some confusion with our end users. We had an iOS app, an Android app, and a web reader. And each of the users had to decide which experience they wanted. This is a screenshot from our website where they had to choose if I was going to download it into the app or read it in my browser or listen in my browser. And most users, especially those that were new to our platform, didn't know which button to click. They just want the book. And to top it off, all of the apps had a different user experience, slightly different features, and weren't connected. So your reading progress in one didn't sync with the others. That's a problem. So in 2015, we decided we need to do something about this. Let's consolidate our reading app technology. And Overdrive Read and Listen was where we were spending our time innovating. It had the most advanced features, had notes and highlights, synchronization across different sessions, full text search of our ebook content, zoomable fixed layout content for comics and graphic novels. And it also had read-alongs, which are narrated books that highlight the words as the text is reading, and it is narrated to the user. So we had a clear goal. Let's leverage a single reading platform, Overdrive Read and Overdrive Listen, inside of our apps and on the web. So our first attempt was, well, we have this really popular app, the Overdrive app. Let's just embed Read and Listen inside of the app. But the Overdrive app was engineered and architected to download content, EPUB files, MP3 files. And Overdrive Listen was architected around streaming content, on-demand downloads of the ebook content, on-demand downloads of the audiobook content. And at the end of the day, we ultimately decided that this was a dead end. We couldn't effectively embed a web reader product inside of a native app. So we went back to the drawing board and itemized that we really have three main contexts to our app. And at the moment with our Overdrive app, they were very disconnected and there were noticeable seams between these three contexts. One was the search and discovery layer, which is a website, not even a single page web app. It's a website that users would navigate through. Once they downloaded content into the app, the shelf management, which we call it, was a native app, so native functionality. And then the reading experience is a web app. So each of those, there were handoffs from one context to another, and the seams were noticeable. So the radical idea we came up with is, what if we created a brand new app that was entirely a web app and eliminated these noticeable seams? And while we're at it, let's start over, act like a startup, trying to compete with Overdrive, and build the best possible user experience we could think of using our many years of experience. So finally, we get to meet Libby. This is Overdrive's new reading app for public libraries. As I mentioned, at its core, Libby is a single-page web app. We feel it's a beautifully designed web app. Extreme care was taken to make Libby feel like a native app. Speed, speed, speed was what we focused on. Our APIs had to be performant, The app had to use navigation or animations to make it feel native. And with today's technology on physical devices, you can do that with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And another guiding principle was that the app had to be fully functional on its own in a web browser. But because it's in a web browser, users had to be online, and if you're reading a book on a train or listening to an audiobook where connectivity is an issue, then that's where the native app comes into play. So Libby is great as a web app, but it's even better as a native app. So this is the augment of the augmented hybrid app. Libby, the native app of Libby, augments the web with native capabilities. So the web app client itself is considered the boss and tells the shell, which is the native app portion, what to do. The native app itself does not make any decisions. Its only job is to respond as efficiently as possible to requests made by the client, the web app. So how did we do this? Well, we utilized a bridge that we send messages back and forth between the native app and the web app web app client. These messages are JSON messages. They're very simple. And here's an example of the web app asking the native shell about connection information. So it's a simple JSON payload coming back saying that it's a cellular connection and it's currently reachable. Our biggest challenge is the offline challenge. We needed our web app to work when there was no web connection. But once we made the decision to move the entire app into a single web app, we could approach the challenge that we already have with content in the same way that we do with the app itself. So what we developed was a concept called cache rosters. So using those bridge messages, we created an API and a system around identifying content that we needed to cache locally, and developed a method that the native shells recognize and download this content for later use offline. The cache rosters allow the Libby app to download packages of content that can be delivered later from local storage, not the web. And the beauty is the web app itself is unaware of any of this. It's making web requests, and the native shell is proxying those web requests and serving them from a local cache instead of the web. There are 3 types of cache rosters that the Libby app uses. One for the web app itself, and it's kind of small, but I have the cache roster here listed. It's simple. The web app itself has 5 parts. A simple HTML to get the thing started, CSS, JavaScript, 1 font file, and 2 favicon images. That's the entire Libby web app. If you were to sum up those bytes, it's less than 320K. The other types of cache rosters that Libby uses are for the book cover images. So when you're offline and you open the app, you want to be able to see the pictures of the cover images of the book, as well as the book content itself, both ebook and audiobooks. Whenever a version of a roster changes, the entire roster needs to be re-downloaded. And this is how we deliver updates to our app. So other augmentations that we did besides the offline proxying is we have the ability to have background audiobook playback. When you're playing an audiobook in the background, there is no web view to host our web app. So we needed to come up with a method for handling that, and that's the job of the native shell. We also have haptic feedback. When you press links in the app, that you can feel them vibrate in your hand like native apps can do. We also take advantage of native geolocation to find libraries near you, and device orientation locking so that we can force the app to stay in portrait mode. We also plan to support notifications, native notifications for when your book becomes available, is close to expiring, those types of things. Time for demos.
Yeah.
Well, not yet. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do the web app demo first, and then I'm gonna try my iPhone. So, the first thing I want to show is a marketing website. This is meet.libbyapp.com, and I have a link at the end. But one thing about marketing websites is they often become outdated. And that's because you take screenshots of the app as it was the day you are creating this website. But because Libby is is a web app, you can do cool things like embed it in an iframe. And this is the app. This isn't a picture of the app, this is the fully functional app inside of an image that looks like a mobile phone. So if you were to download the Libby app today, this is exactly the first screen you'd see. You click on Hi, it opens up, and it shows you some of the benefits of the app. It takes you to the call of action as you want to find your library. So I found a library in Japan. We don't have many, but we are working on that hard. So, come back. It's not my public library because I live in Cleveland. So I'm going to say no, this is not my library. But it was trying to be helpful. And you could, if the location was off, you can use precise location, get permission, and get closer to your library. But I know it's not going to find Cleveland here. So you can search for it by name, by zip code, postal code, and there it is, Cleveland. So this app, even though it's on a marketing web page, is fully functional. I can borrow books, I can place holds, I can read a book, all within this tiny little window. It's going to be hard for me to navigate in this little window, so I'm going to go to a full page website, but I wanted to show you that because it's pretty cool. Okay, so this is Chrome, but it could be any browser. This is the web app in a browser. Again, fully functional. I have one library card already signed in, so I'm ready at this point to borrow books and read books that I already have. So if you remember from the previous slide, I said there was three main contexts to our app. The search and discovery layer, which is this library tab across the bottom. There's three links here. Shelf management. So if I can click on the shelf here, you can see the books that I have already borrowed, along with those that I have on hold and those that I have tagged. And then the center button in the bottom is our third context, which is the web reader. So this is the book that I have. This is my last active book that I was reading, and it's a fully functional web reader. So some of the features. Well, let's go back. Let's find a new book to borrow, so you know it's not canned. So one thing about Libby is it's a library app, and we want to feature content that your local library is featuring. And so all of this is the library tab across the bottom. All of the featured content here was developed by libraries in Ohio, in Cleveland, for patrons. So these are what we call curated lists. And so they are, themed. These are holidays. These are new books that are added to the collection. There's fall cooking, and you can just keep scrolling and scrolling, and you keep getting collections featured and displayed to you. So I'm going to click on this category, popular nonfiction ebooks. If there's any book, well, it's dangerous. If there's any book that interests you, we can click on it and borrow it. Nonfiction is pretty easy. So I'm just going to pick one. I'll pick this 100 Simple Secrets of Successful People. So you can see a description of the book, the genres that it's a part of. You can read a sample, or I'm just going to go ahead and borrow it. I'll show you how easy Libby is to use. You can pick your lending period. Since this is a demo, I'm just going to pick 7 days, but I can actually early return it and be a good library citizen when I'm done. Click borrow, and it's that easy. Click open, and you're reading. Some of the hidden features in our reader is baked into this. Someone called it a seekometer. It's the scrubber at the bottom. So the current chapter we're in is a note to readers. You can click on that, and you can get access to all the chapters with one click. You can also jump. You can also jump back. It's a lot easier on a touch screen. You can click on the percentage and it'll tell you how much it's still paginating. The web connection isn't the greatest right now. Oh, I'll skip that. You can, there's all the features of a reader you would expect. Change the font size, you can see it better in the back of the room. Change sepia tone, all those types of things. If there's a word that you're not familiar with, you can look it up, dictionary. Notes and highlights, bookmarks, all that kind of stuff. Let's go back. And you're always one tap away from going back to your shelf to see what other books you have active, or clicking on the library to find more books. Let's go to my shelf. There are a couple books that show some of the other features of our app. The previous book was reflowable. We can change the font size. This is fixed layout. So we can do comics and all that kind of stuff, which is great. And we also have read-alongs, as I mentioned before. Let me go forward a couple pages. We didn't test sound, so we'll see.
It's a story with his mama. Mama kisses baby's hair. Mama llama goes downstairs.
Okay, you get the idea.
Llama llama, red pajama. Feels all
There we go. It is a good choice. All right, so that is all in a web browser, all streaming. I'm going to break the projector by switching to my iPhone. 1 second. To be on this last page. So this is the native Libby app. You'll notice some similarities because it's the same functionality as what we've already seen. I switched to the shelf real quick, and you can see that book we just checked out on this computer was picked up, and now it's actually downloading. There's a setting for download settings that does not actually appear in the app. The mobile app, the web app, because you can't download on the web, but the client is smart enough to know that it's within a native app shelf and gives you options for downloading. So now all of these books are fully downloaded. So if I turn off, or go on to airplane mode, and turn my Wi-Fi off, any of these books, I don't want to play Llama again, you can just open, so I'll open this one. So this is where the cache rostering has kicked in and is downloading all of the ebook. It had previously downloaded all of the ebook content, and now it's serving it up dynamically. we'll do an audiobook as well. This is one of my favorite audiobooks, The Worst Case Scenario Survival Handbook. So if you've learned nothing from this presentation, I will now teach you how to escape from quicksand. Hit the volume. I think the cabling is...
It's probably going to
Yeah,
this.
alright, well.
It is playing.
It is playing. I can unplug this and then it'll play. There you go.
3. Up on your back and on top of the pole. After a minute or two.
So if you're actually in quicksand, you might want to speed this up because Burt Reynolds is talking pretty slow. So there is speed playback control.
Work the pole to a new position on your hips, like things like
There you go. Maybe too fast.
One leg and then the other. 5.
Alright,
The shortest route.
I'll go back to the slides.
What book is Burt Reynolds talking to you about escaping quicksand?
Oh, that was this one right here. The Worst Case Scenario Survival Handbook. It's very entertaining. Maybe I can get it to play here. Ah, that's all right. Let me at least show you the table of contents because there's some really good ones in here. Oh, it's too small. I'll read a couple of my favorites. How to break into a car. How to hotwire a car. How to escape from killer bees, an alligator, mountain lion, a bear. There's some escaping here. Anyhow. So, a few of the benefits that we've seen through developing the Libby app. We have a single deliverable across multiple platforms. Our help system is so much easier because the app is identical whether you're on an iOS device, in a web browser, on an Apple device, on a Windows device. It behaves identically, which has helped us trim down our help articles. You don't have to say, if you're Android, follow these steps. And our updates are super quick. We don't have to be slowed down by the Apple review process. There is no step in that sense. We deploy the code and it picks up on the changes and updates it. And these updates are instant and mandatory. I know our Overdrive app, we struggle because users haven't updated to our latest version and we don't want to force them to, but with Libby, we do force them because you just open the app and it forces an update right then, if there's one available. There are some challenges with the way we approach this. Web blocking, parental controls, that type of thing, can negatively impact our app more than it would normal native apps. Accessibility is so much easier with native APIs, and making a single page web app accessible is very difficult, but we're working on it. And the flip side of not having very many native app updates in the app stores, some users might look and see that we haven't updated the app in months or quarters and shy away from it as if it's not being actively developed, whereas it could be it is the exact opposite, where we're deploying updates every week. That's it. I appreciate your attention, and if you wanted to play with the app, there's the website, meet.libbyapp.com. That's the marketing website. And
Cool.
That's it. Any questions?
Do you have time for questions? Oh yeah, time for questions. Yeah.
What do the current demographics for Overdrive look like of people who would want to do all of these things on an app versus a dedicated device, or some people still have MP3 players or something like that?
Right. So one feature I did not show is you have the ability to send your content to Kindle. So if you're an e-ink Kindle reader, Kindle user, you can easily send the book there. MP3 files on an MP3 player, that's used to be really popular with our Overdrive app, but over the years it's becoming less and less popular with Bluetooth connected cars and that type of thing.
I have a question too. So since you're standardizing on kind of HTML5 and you're still doing iOS and Android, but I mean, is there a significant savings on development costs for those teams? Like, imagine if I told you to do it on all platforms, what would it look like?
Yeah, so we still support the Overdrive app, so our teams haven't changed. But the number of hours that is spent on the shell, which feature-wise is pretty small, it has to manage cache rostering and messaging back and forth. But we were able to build a Windows app, a native Windows app, using the same approach. So we've been in a issue where our Overdrive app for Android and iOS get out of sync with features, and one team is faster than the other, and getting those released, timing them with documentation is always a hassle. With our approach now, it's one deploy, all of the apps see the same feature at the exact same time. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Is it going to be possible to merge everything? I mean, if you say you go to CleveNet directly and you go to a website, they're the library site, could that just be Libby and you're in the environment already?
Yes, it could be. Yep.
So even because you have 4 or 5 different versions with the 2 apps in Libby and the website platform.
Right. So I didn't mention, I don't think Frank mentioned, I've been at Overdrive 23 years. And one thing that we've learned is users hate change.
Okay.
And so that is one of the reasons why we still have the existing apps, is we're not yet at a point where we're feature complete enough with Libby to start moving people over. But once we do that, then I think the picture you painted would be a reality.
Thank you.
Sure. Sure.
What languages do you support in the dictionary feature?
You stumped me. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know. I'd have to check.
All right.
Sorry.
All right, well, no more questions, and thanks very much, Jeff.
Thank you.